Assalamu alaikum viewers, welcome to our YouTube channel. We have a special episode today related to a video produced by Historyun on the subject of Syria, principles of power, politics, and Ibn Khaldun. The reason we selected this video is because it covered a number of issues which do fall within our wheelhouse. The video itself, to do justice to it, the brother is kind of speaking almost dispassionately about certain necessities of power. However, how it was framed, it does belie a certain mentality whereby in the events or in the machinations of power, it almost becomes a given that certain things that may have happened are how they should be. And this is a mentality that needs to be addressed, because almost as if the Prophet ﷺ's model and the Khulafa Rashidin, it's almost been dispensed with. In fact, it has been dispensed with. And in retrospect, people have tried to make justification. Whereas it is glaringly clear that in matters of governance, there isn't this two-tier type of relationship whereby a Machiavellian a point of view whereby the ends justifies the means is the way it should be and the way it's justified. So the video did provide us with ample ammunition, you could say, to discuss this issue. And in particular, as things are currently playing out in the Muslim world, and as we stand on the precipice of momentous events, we felt it's important to do justice to this subject and to really dive into this in some considerable detail. And also to bring to the viewer a clearer understanding of how integral Islamic governance is and how clear it is on issues of such as shura, in terms of accountability, and there isn't this Machiavellian approach. And now more than ever, this needs to be cleared up. So the video starts with a discussion between a number of people, just kind of a bit of discussion back and forth, where the actual video starts in proper, the backdrop is around the Iran-Iraq war, and then it branches off from there. So I'm going to start at the book 27 minutes, 15-second mark. So bear with us. There's some of it may well be a bit of a side segue. However, as it progresses, you will start to see A, that this kind of point of view needed to be discussed, and B, it'll give us opportunity to discuss it. So today we have our resident scholar, Professor Muhammad al-Masri. So Professor Muhammad al-Masri has written extensively on the subject of Islamic governance, usul, fiqh, a whole plethora of subjects, and has been an activist, in particular against the Saudi regime. And the monarchy itself is another area which people try to make out as being ambiguous, whereas Islam is very unequivocal on the concept of prohibiting monarchy. The professor has been active against Al Saud for over 50 years and has been its leading critic. So he's very well equipped to discuss this subject, as well as studying politics and the wider area, Syria as well, and the entire Middle East for many, many years, and has followed the revolution since the start. So he's very well equipped to discuss this, and this is not going to be a superficial discussion. Unfortunately, unlike the Historyun discussion, it was genuinely quite superficial and making history almost like a source of legislation for us, which it isn't. Anyway,
by the way, we should have the links for the
it will be pasted.
Books about Mulukiya, even the Arabic ones. If there's an English, also the English one, and also the issue of Talab al-Nusrah clarification was it, and Saheefah and Madina. Few things so that the one about immigration, Islamic citizenship, and in parentheses the right of self-determination. I think these are crucial. That's number one. And secondly, maybe the top link, because we have the broadcast which we follow the Syrian affairs since 10/11 until 10/15, almost every day broadcast. We had a satellite channel at that time, plus an internet channel, I think. No, it was only internet channel, but it was structured as a broadcast, and we were covering that almost daily. So just give maybe a few links there so that people can go from there and then continue. And most likely is a certain playlist, a very long playlist. So that people have a material to see that these issues have been addressed on spot and commented on from Sharia point of view, from philosophical point of view, from Muslim point of view. That should be in the description also, inshallah.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'll start with the video clips. apologies, some of it may be a bit segues, but again, it's something that will cover significant material. So again, this is starting with the discussion on Iran-Iraq war and the whole idea of almost presenting a necessity to wipe out your opponents and maintaining power with an iron grip.
If people you don't like, if you want to survive, you have to do that, at least initially. But what we learn from this example is once you get the power that you want to get, typically those agreements are ripped to shreds. Literally, he ripped it to shreds in 79. So when you see groups collaborating, writing contracts, agreeing today, don't think they're doing it because no, sometimes you have to do it for the short term, but the intention is when I'm powerful enough, I'm going to rip all these agreements. We have to learn these lessons. It's part of politics. Finally, in 79, Saddam, let's just say he persuades his cousin to resign, and Saddam becomes president. And our story begins there in 79 when Saddam becomes president. Now, as I said before, when you enter through coup d'etat or revolution, you have to lock the door behind you. Within a week of Saddam entering that door, he did the purge, the famous purge we studied in the previous sessions. He purged the government of any conspirators who were looking to work with Assad in Syria. He got rid of them because he understood, unless you shut the door to revolution, you're going to get another revolution. He understood the cycle. He knew Iraq, we've had so many revolutions. The only way to go through the door of revolution and not to be attacked by the same door is to lock it shut. So he purged the entire government of anybody who was looking or participating in rapprochement with Syria's Assad. Right? So he understood the game and he locked that door very tight and very clearly. He made it very clear, I will not tolerate any form of scheming and conspiracy behind my back. That was an act to show the conspirators, this time around, we're not tolerating anything. And guess what? That's what it takes. If you go through a revolution, that's what it takes to keep power. Morsi in Egypt went through a revolution. Then he came into power legitimately, but he didn't do what Saddam did. He didn't crush the opponents. I think in the 49 laws of, 49 laws of power, one of the laws is you have to crush the opponents before he gets enough power to come back. If you are in the game, in the industry of revolutions, once you get to power, you have to crush the opponents. If you don't do that, they will crush you. And we've seen it in Egypt. We have seen it in Egypt. He was benign. He wasn't willing to go all the way. And because he didn't go all the way, they got to him. Saddam says, not me, because Saddam was already by that time very well trained. He knew the history. He was involved in several coups himself before. He understood, I have to crush any potential for another revolution immediately. He did it spectacularly. He put it on TV. Listen, I don't care if you're doing it secretly, whether you're in the government, the whole nation has found out that you don't play with me. He made it very clear. There's only one party here, Saddam's party. Get with the program. Yeah. So Saddam understood because he was in that life. He was in that world and he understood. So I say that to say this. We have different moral standards as civilians. When somebody comes to power, we expect them to be nice, to be kind, to be benevolent, not understanding that there is a different rule book for that game. They're playing by a different rule book. What will make a good person individually in your ordinary life doesn't make you an effective leader if you're involved in revolutions and toppling governments. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to crush the opponents completely. This is why in the animal world, for example, when a lion enters a new pride and he goes head to head with the father and he kills the father or the male figure, what does the lion do to the cubs? What does a lion do to the cubs? So the orphans, he kills them. He doesn't just let them survive, he kills them. Why? Because if I don't kill them now, what's going to happen? If the lion who enters a pride and defeats the figure, the father figure, or the main lion, because there's only one leader in the lion community, it's always the father, the male figure. If you kill that figure and he has children left, the only solution in the animal world is to kill the children. Why? Because the same way I killed their father, by nature, it's in them, they're going to devour me and kill me later on when they're strong enough. In the animal world, we see it all the time. So the lion who comes in and does a revolution, a coup, immediately he has to kill the children. Because if I don't do that, I'm waiting.
Yes, sure.
Let me comment on that first about the lion, because this is a fallacy there. The lion does not think about that as the name. The reason that he kills the children from the previous one is that when he kills the children, they are not nursed by the mother. So the mother come in heat and he can fulfill his sexual desire. And that's all dictated by instinct and designed through whatever, if you want to be a materialistic and atheist, by evolution, or by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, provided through evolution and natural selection, or immediate creation. It doesn't matter. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he creates and designs the way he thinks the proper way of doing, and we know how he's doing it. The Quran describes that. So this refers to a fallacy. There's no coup d'etat and so on. That's how the procreation and the choice of stronger males and stronger genes are happening. And when a lion succeed in kicking out the old lion, or lions, because usually 3-4 sharing the pride, and 2, 3 or 4 more new one comes, younger ones, stronger one, and they want to continue procreating. They don't want what we say want to, just metaphorically. The instinct drive them to get the female, and they kick the old lions. If they succeed, take over the prize, but they are stuck. The females are not susceptible for sex, for mating. So the only way, obviously, how evolution worked, or Allah designed through evolution, whatever you choose, is to kill those. After killing them, there's no more nursing, and after a certain time, they come in heat and they accept sex. And then his procreation, his seed continues. That's just to clarify that. So he's looking at that as if it is really a coup d'etat and plot and so on. But what he's arguing is very important to hold that firm in hand. He's arguing essentially for the law of the jungle, that the law of the jungle, how the world works. It may work in the animal kingdom because they're controlled by instinct and by the design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the universe. That instinct is sufficiently capable of keeping things going forward the way Allah designed. But the moment Adam has been chosen, that's our belief now. That's the meaning of the difference between humans and animals. Obviously, atheists and evolutionists and so on, they have no escape. For them, human beings are just continuation. And then the problem will face how to develop a morality which is different than the law of the jungle. And there's many philosophical attempts and going back and forth and things like that. It will not succeed. They may develop a morality based on utilitarianism. It's beneficial. The philosophy goes the following way. If we continue the way how it's happened in the pride, the lion pride, then the strong ones will take all female and all wealth. But humanity is obviously, the number has increased in dark history, which we know that's what the philosophers argue. And then the majority are generally mediocre. The one produced even by a strong lion, the majority of the kids are mediocre. Only few inherit the superior strong beer, the genes, either strong in body or strong intelligence or both. This is the minority. But the majority will be marginalized. So it may be, for human beings, the majority are sufficiently rational and can cooperate together. So as a community, they put rules that will not allow such coup d'etats. And whoever does that, we kill him, regard him as Khariji or as a rebel or an anarchist. And the agreement is that we must agree upon that we don't kill each other. We follow certain procedure called marriage. We should follow certain procedure exchanging money. Nobody takes by force, because if you allow that, again, the strong one will prevail and the majority will suffer. So the majority agrees with that for their benefit as a majority. You could say we have a law of social cohesion instead of the law of the jungle. But this is based on benefit and agreement between the average, the mediocre. This will lead, if it's established over a long time, into softer societies, which can be easily invaded by nomads like the Mongols and so on. But there's no escape from that, because the foundation of that was based on natural development and agreement. It has no fundamental philosophical rooting in the material world or the beginning of the universe, being it in a Big Bang or whatever it is. So the philosophers have to argue and try to develop a morality which seems to be standing on its own feet. They cannot. It's just a social agreement. That's the maximum an atheist can develop in matter of morality. So from this point of view, now we know, because we have the revelation, and this, I think, the Historyun, the TajdeedRevival, if we say it fully in Arabic, evidently they have somehow some Islamic background, So we can assume fairly or safely that they know that the Islamic revelation dictate clearly that Adam, with the blowing the spirit in him, independent of he came physically out of the evolution process, that's not an issue. That's the issue only for some dumb guys in Muslim camps and most Christians who are fundamentalist and believe that the Old Testament is literally true or things like that. But independent of that, what is the meaning of blowing the spirit is explained in the Old Testament and also by some hadith in Muslim that Allah created Adam according to his image. What's his image? Allah is obviously is not a material being, so it doesn't have a structure, an image, the way because it's not a composite object. It's completely beyond any immediate perception. The image means that he has free will and consciousness and knowledge. But obviously, Adam is let us say, use a mathematical language, is the projection of the infinite, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, into the finite. With this blowing the spirit, how it is appeared in the physical universe, which kind of mutation are behind that, we don't need to bother. Leave that for science development. But with that, Adam was separated from the beast and was elevated from the beast. Before that, even physically, bodily, previous humans, if we take evolution as a model, which makes good sense, reasonable, he's standing on 2 feet. The front feet became hands, and they became able to do tools. And because he is standing on 2 feet and he takes the hand to put food in his mouth, there is no need for the lower jaw to be long like dogs and animals. It recedes back and the brain becomes big. All evolution people explain you that. You get a bigger brain and so on. But also, the moment you become conscious, by what is explained in the Quran, as when I blow in him and my spirit prostrate to him, addressing the angels, he is then capable of looking up to the skies and thinks about the stars and the origin of the universe. He is now separate from the beast. He is above the beast, separated by this facility of consciousness and free will. So we cannot apply it. Now, this being this way has choice. Either he chooses to sink down to the animal level and follow evolutionary processes and the law of the jungle, like most human beings, unfortunately, instead of appreciating Allah's favor on them to lift them or to give some finite version of his divine attribute and become Rabbani, become divine-like, and ascend more and more in Rabbaniyin, as the Quran says. He doesn't order you to make the angels and so on rose beside Allah, but be Rabbaniyun. بما كنتم تعلمون الكتاب, be Rabbani, be a God-like by teaching the scripture and about what you study. That studying and teaching the scripture lift you out of the level of beast into conscious, learning, free will human being. The choice is there, definitely. If you choose the other one, then the only thing you can analyze for interaction, society and state and coup d'etat is the law, essentially, ultimately the law of the jungle. So before, we don't need to discuss his details about these things. That's a fundamental question. If it is true, and I think he agrees with us and so on, based on the absolutely irrefutable evidences of Prophet Muhammad and the Quran is a revelation of Allah. Let's assume that as a base. We are not going to go in evidence for God and prophethood. That's another issue. If that's true, then obviously this human had been chosen for that and is ordered and chosen to do a certain function in the divine plan. Allah said in the Quran, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. Your Lord say to the angels, we don't know how this conversation has happened. We are not present there. Is it metaphorical for something else, or it is a real conversation? Are the angels real entities who can think at least partly and interact, or it is a metaphor for interrogating the system of the universe? We don't need to. It doesn't matter. The reality is it's presented. You can see it with your eyes and hear it with your ears. I am going to establish on earth a successor or a succession. Some people successor means succeed Allah in managing his reality. Some people successor for previous entities and beings. Whatever the explanation is, Allah said that to the angels. The angels said, was surprised. Are you going to establish someone? It seems to be, first of all, he said on earth, that refutes the claim that the Jannah of Adam is in heaven. Is not. It is actually in earth, and most likely in the high plains of Ethiopia. But that's not an issue for us today, where it is, or in Kashmir, or whatever some people imagine. That's all irrelevant. But it's on earth. It's not the Jannah of Akhirah. It's not the Jannah of Akhirah. The word Jannah in Arabic means garden. Can be a garden of dunya, garden in heaven, garden of Akhirah. To be created, it is irrelevant. But obviously they understood this will be succeeding previous generation. Some old scholars, they could not imagine that previously some pre-humans or maybe animals were there, because they don't have any concept of evolution at the time, which is okay, no problem. That's the level of knowledge of the time. They say they were tribes of jinn who were fighting and shedding blood and things like that. Okay, you can take that story if you want. That's no problem. Whatever it was before. Even the Old Testament, there are certain stories about pre-humans and other humans and other Adams and these things. Trying to understand the history before blowing the spirit in Adam. Allah answered him, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. And then he taught Adam all names. What does it mean to teach you? Classical scholars teach you all name meanings. He told them, this is the tree, this is the lion, this is the donkey. No. All names is all names, meaning he gave him the capability of naming things. He is a being which has linguistic ability and conceptual development, which obviously the angels do not have. It's clear that the development have. And possibly most other beings do not have. There may be other conscious beings who have, but Adam is unique on earth at least. And then presented some of these things to the angels, which they have not been taught before by Allah. What's their name, or how to describe them, how to make a concept of them, and possibly formulated in form of sounds and letters or symbols. But anyway, the concept is the most important thing. Tell me the names of these things. If you are really telling the truth about that, you understand the universe better than me. They say, Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka. Praise to you, glory to you. We don't have any knowledge except what you have taught to us. You are the most knowledgeable and the most wise. Then Allah turns to Adam. We don't know how that happened. Was Adam standing there, or it's something in the metaphorical for something in the genes or the structure of the brain? We don't know, but it's that irrelevant. It presented to you that you can enjoy as a piece of theater. You enjoy it and you understand it and deduce the meaning of it. Tell Adam, tell them the name. So Adam is now have the capability. He tells the name of new things which he never saw before. Because Allah will not be cheat the angels giving Adam something he showed him before, but he gave him the capability. So show things which maybe show them something in the future which neither is not yet here. And ask Adam, develop for that a name or a concept. Adam did, the angels have failed to do. And then he tell them, Alam aqul lakum min alim ghalib as-samawati. I know that's hidden in heavens and earth. And I know what you have been hiding and what you exposing, because some entities which were joined to the angel or a sub-tribe of the angel, one of them is Iblis, they were thinking in their heart, does Allah know what we think? Is his knowledge so extensive? What's going on there? Yeah, I know what you're going inside. And that's what get Iblis killed and destroyed, because he did not respect Allah as he should be respected and did not conceive with his rationality. He has more rationality than the average angels, if we assume he's an angel. Some people say he's from an extended tribe of jinn. The angels are a sub-tribe of the jinn. Whatever it is, that's all speculation and needs maybe a separate study, but that's not our issue yet. Our issue is really what does mean, what that really means. Because Iblis tried to test Allah, then rebelled against the issue of sujood and was condemned as shut out. Meaning, this being which will be succeeding on earth is supposed by Allah's design to fulfill a certain function, to be separate and above the beast. That's how it should be. That he physically, because of his instinct, that he eats foods like the beast, he needs to eat animals, that he needs to go to the loo like the beast. That does not mean that Allah wanted him to be like that. So what Allah wanted is different about the reality, which if you neglect what Allah had done and you are unaware what Allah did behind the scene, because we were not present at that, we were not yet created. If that, then you can argue like Historyun or even Khaldun, as we will discuss later, argue. But that's not the case. So his argument from this point view is fundamentally flawed, because human interaction, human life are supposed to be, if you believe in revelation, and you must believe in the revelation, or at least must say revelation is a possibility. because no atheist ever produce any evidence for atheism, and you cannot produce an atheist. All what they bring is that there's no evidence for God. There's no evidence for that. What is your evidence that you universe is eternal, necessary, existing? Oh, no, we don't have anything. But you have to have that. No, they have to bring an evidence. So leave that philosophical side. Now for the historic side, even this is a fallacy. Even historically a fallacy. He did not analyze. He said history began in 1979. No. Saddam and the Ba'ath Party was established even under, essentially the center of establishment was Damascus. Michel Aflaq, a Christian, adopted. He has nothing else to adopt because he's a Christian, and there was occupation, and normal reaction of human being under occupation, if they are rejected, and most likely he was not a practicing Christian like most Christians in the world at that time. Really, they are not practicing, and even if they are practicing some rituals and some Eucharist and drinking the blood of Isa, and that's all what they practice, and maybe some bit morality, but they don't have the practice which is even in the New Testament. So if it comes to political life, living, and Michel Aflaq is born in this century or late the last century, I think even begin this century or later century, 19th century, and the whole world at that time, especially in Europe, Europe is the model. Europe is occupying everyone. Europe is having the biggest muscle in the universe. So the people will be, as usually, influenced by the dominant force. That's natural. And the model in Europe for societies and so on is nationalism, even in extreme form of fascism. So there were parties which are nationalistic, Michel Aflaq, and also the model for economy and so on, which is attractive for especially oppressed people, is socialism. Not necessarily communism, but socialism. So that's what was said. And the name of the Ba'ath Party is Hizb al-Ba'ath al-Arabi al-Ishtiraki. The Arab Revival, because the name is Ba'ath meaning revival. The Socialist Arab Revival Party. So it's the Arab Revival Party. And his theory is that even Islam is an old revolution, shows the Arab is potentially, but again, you see the nationalism and the racism hidden behind that. They are potentially a leading nation which can produce new ideologies and new ideas changing the world. And you have to revive that spirit of restarting it. But because he's a Christian, you have an example, and the only culture he has on the table is the European culture, and there's nationalism, there's nothing else there to establish state of society. So he established about it. There were others in Syria at that time, smaller in number, who went to extreme and also to establish something almost like a fascist system. Aflaq was not from this type. It was more in a democratic, social democratic way. It was not really, not very inclined to communism. That's the truth, states the truth. When in Syria things developed, Syria became independent, at least nominally, and the leadership, they were mostly secular, not secular ideological sense that they don't believe in Islam, but they have no other culture, no education. They're coming from ignorant background, and they were committed to Arab unity and so on, although not necessarily members of Hizb al-Ba'ath, but generally, and they reached to Abdel Nasser, fooled by Abdel Nasser campaign. At the time, barely anyone in the universe except Hizb ut-Tahrir noticed that Abdel Nasser is groomed and put forward by the American embassy. He's the American agent, if we use the term agent in a wider sense. Shukr al-Quwwati did not recognize that, and to foster Arab unity, he was willing to give up the presidency of Syria and join with Egypt in the unity. Obviously, this unity, if it succeeds, will be a threat for monarchies and other things for various reasons, especially those who are established and following the British model of world dominance. That's the oligarchy, not the American nationalists. So what happened? They plotted to separate it, and then after separation, a faction of Hizb al-Ba'ath, in which Salah Jadid and Hafez al-Assad jump into power. They may be even involved in breaking the Arab United Arab Republic, الجمهورية العربية المتحدة, the United or the Union of Arab Republics, which is Egypt and Syria. We must admit that Abdel Nasser management in Syria was faulty, but you don't expect from a man like Abdel Nasser much more than that. Yeah, maybe definitely he's a handsome-looking one, and he's an excellent speaker. This does not mean that he is really an excellent leader or a man who will change history. Just That you can talk beautifully and talk for 3 hours and excite the public does not mean necessarily that the one who can make history. Making history needs other qualities than that, than being an eloquent speaker and handsome, good-looking man. No, it doesn't require that. But anyway, these two guys hold the power. The leader was actually Salah Jadid, was higher in rank. I think he was the prime minister or the president. I don't know the fine details at the moment. Both are belonging to the so-called Allawi or actually Nusayri faction. Nusayri is an obscure religion. Until now, I could not really get a handle on them. The best theory is that they originally, actually, the star worship, the Sabi'in of Harran. The Sabi'in of Harran is even the name Sabi'in is wrong. They adopted the name Sabi'in to fool the Muslims that they are the Sabi'in mentioned in the Quran. And they claim to many Muslims, listen, we don't worship the star. The star is only a qibla, is a direction of prayer. And even they succeeded to fool a great mind like Abu Hanif. Abu Hanif said the Sabi'in of Harran at his time, because the original Sabi'in, I will mention them later, the Sabi'in of Harran, they adopted this name, and since they are monotheists, they just face the stars as a direction, and the Quran mentioned them. They are like the people of the book. You can marry their woman and eat their slaughtering. They are not mushrik, according to Saheefah. But his students detected the trick, and they said, no, they are not from people of the book. They are mushrikeen, genuine, and you cannot marry them, and you cannot eat their slaughter. Anyway, that's as a side note. The true Sabi'in mentioned in the Quran clarified also in the book of Tawheed to discuss who are the Sabi'un, is actually a faction of the Jews, and they are actually the follower of John the Baptist, Yahya ibn Zakaria. And they immigrated to Iraq and settled there. When Islam came, the overwhelming majority of them embraced Islam. A small minority remained somewhere in villages. That's the true Sabi'in. These are monotheists. These are from the people of the book. They are part of the Jews. These you can't eat their slaughtering until now. And these you can marry their woman until now. That's a second issue. So then later on, the trick was called off by many people and became apparent. So they morphed in and claiming that they believe in the divine spirit coming in the Imams, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and one after the prophets, one after one until Muhammad, from Muhammad jumping to Ali and so on. Some kind of continuous incarnation, an extreme form of Ismaili ideology. And then they called Nusayri. According to a man called Nusayra. So that's the best theory available. But is it qat'i? We don't know. Nobody did real research, proper research. There's a book about them, but I don't know if the man did the research properly. Many people claim it's a good research. I have not seen it. Honestly, I'm not interested in it. Later on, in the recent 2-3 centuries, because the whole environment reacted to them as kafir, as outside. So they adopted them. No, we believe in Ali and the Imam Islam. So they call themselves Alawi. And actually, they succeeded in fooling the Ithna Ashari in Iraq later. But anyway, that's the history. So they belong to this. When the country was under French occupation, the French, as any imperial power, especially a nasty one like the French, which is much nastier in this cultural aspect than the British. The British are very, very conservative in cultural aspect. They leave the people their culture and system. They don't interfere very much. They're interested in money, collecting taxes, getting money, and having influence in having ports, having the Navy accepted everywhere. That's all. They don't go in culture, don't force their language on you, and so on. You adopt the language if you wish. And usually people will ultimately adopt English. That they don't force the language is seen, for example, in Mauritius. Mauritius was originally French occupied, and the people there speak a broken French, Creole. This Creole is spoken until now, although it changed hands at the time of Napoleon until its liberation in the 60s of the last century. That's 1.5 century. English is only a secondary language. The English is not enforcing. They're not interested in cultural things that much, but in a subtle way, maybe. The French interested in that. They looked in Sham, and they were looking before, in the later years of the Khilafah Uthmaniyya, and which they were working actively to stop it through their agent Muhammad Ali in Egypt. They know, they don't need to notice that time, that there are various religious minorities, and the best way to keep this country under control is people and to control the majority of Muslims, which are a menace for France and menace for Britain and menace for the West, because the confrontation between West and the rest of the world and Islam world is an ideological confrontation going to the time of the coming of Muhammad sallam, and then the reaction, the crusade, and the Iron Curtain erected by the church to shield Europe from the Islamic influence and light. So it became part of the European identity to be anti-Islamic. And so how to get control forever, that's what any imperialist dream, any colonialist, and subdue the majority Muslim. Because the majority is Muslim, no doubt. In Palestine, that was all Sham, but they divided between the British zone, according to Sykes-Picot. Britain got Palestine and Jordan, and France got Syria and Lebanon. Actually, the British tried to cheat and take Syria and give it to King Faisal of Iran, but the French came by force and kicked them out. So they tried to play, but they did not succeed. But the British did not do very much. In that area, how to cement yourself? Look at minorities which are despised by the surrounding majority, or having a conflict, or having a deep ideological divide. Obviously, the French are quite advanced in science and technology and scholarship. Their scholars recognize that these Alawi or Nusayri are, beside the Christian, but these Alawi and Nusayri are a prime target for their attempt to control and make a split which they can play on it and play for it decades and centuries down the road. The Christians are also there, but the problem the Christians do not have a political ideology. It's very difficult to get them on board unless they become like the Phalangists in Lebanon, fascists and things like that. But this is extra Christian. The majority of Christians accept any power as long as they are not oppressed. So they will not have conflict really with Muslims. You cannot get them as a tool. Some of them you can get, a minority usually. But these Nusayri believe in the Imam and the Imama and so on. This is a political ideology that can be used to make mischief. Excellent. Excellent. Get there. And at that time, the Nusayri, feeling oppressed and very backward, many of them were vying for power or self-justification, and they seem to be Hafez al-Assad family is of this type. They were cooperating with the French occupier. Actually, the uncles of Hafez al-Assad, the lady uncles, were mistresses of the French governor. That's the history. You have to go history that bad. It looks like going into personal issues and sex and bed, but that plays a role in human life. You cannot discount it. From that day, the French had encouraged them to join the army and so on. So portion of the army, over proportion, they were represented the army, and they proceeded in their ranks because the French agents, they love the French and the French love them. So when the separation happened, and to be politically active, you have to join a party in Syria. This is a country which is relatively modern since the beginning of the last century. So they joined the Ba'ath Party, which looks the most promising and the most popular split. After the split with Egypt, these two were in power. Later in 1967, and in the development after that, the both of them made a deal, as is witnessed now with a person who is still alive, Ihsan, the son of Adib Shishakli, who is him a Ba'athist and high ranking, and he became Ba'athist opposite to his father's order. His father, Adib Shishakli, was the first one to do a coup d'etat in Syria in the late 40s, early 50s. They did actually two coup d'etat. One against Hosni Zaim, one initial one that Hosni Zaim came, then he toppled Hosni Zaim and came back. And his father against his being Ba'athi. So he's a Ba'athi up to conviction. And he witnesses in a recent recording, he's now 90 years plus old, and he said, the Golan has been sold by Salah Jadid and Hafez al-Assad. Everyone knows that he's from the Ba'ath Party for 100 million, but they disputed about a split. Salah Jadid wanted more than 50-50, or Hafez wanted more, and then disputed, and Hafez was sufficient intelligent and cunning that he got rid of Salah Jadid and enforced himself. So this is all machination of people who are fighting for power, who use their family members, female family members as prostitutes. They don't care. That's it. And their motivation is pure power. No wonder that he's an excellent power broker. Then he looked around, what to do? I must play some kind of a game, some kind of a role to cement myself and give myself some kind of legitimacy, philosophical, ethical legitimacy. So, because he's a member of the Ba'ath Party, by the way, Salah Jadid, and especially Hafez specifically, announced in 1964 in the radio of Dimashq that he embraced the Sunni Islam through the Mufti of Syria. The man knows how to play religion very intelligently. In the late 60s, early 70s, he noticed we are a socialist party. We pretend to be against America and Britain, and in reality they are related to France and Britain, and later, which became the oligarchy. Later to that, we need to have some kind of international credential. So he was propagating socialism. Secondly, we need to have some kind of international cover. So he approached the Soviet Union that you should have a base in the Mediterranean. That's how the base in Latakia was established. The Soviet Union swallowed the bait. I think they swallowed it. He was able to fool them because objectively, in the balance of the power, having a base in the Mediterranean is harmful for the rest. It's not good for them because that one base will be taken out by NATO in a few minutes. But he locked them by saying, you have to have a base in the Mediterranean to confront the presence of NATO and the American and the capitalists. And then you can reach to the warm waters. This is the language of the 19th century and the 18th century. These times are long gone. Now you can control the world and defend yourself by using nuclear weapons, and you have ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. You don't need a base in the Mediterranean, nor a base in China to defend yourself, unless you want to invade the others. The Soviet Union did not want. They want to carry them as it's an ideological imperialism. The best way is to carry through parties, as with intellectualism. So anyway, but I believe they swallowed the bait. Or they know about the man, but they said, oh, base is good for us. Whatever, stupidity, etc. That they are stupid in international interaction is clear. Their defeat and their collapse of that show that they are not the people who can really understand the world in the proper term, or in power at least. Leave morality in power. They are not able to be a power broker like the Americans, the European. So then when the situation of now Hizb al-Ba'ath was split because the genuine Ba'athi, like Michel Aflaq, they recognize these groups are dangerous people. They are not really Arab nationalists. They are not genuinely Arabs. They are not genuinely interested in Syria and the Arab nation. And it seems Michel Aflaq was really sincerely a nationalist in that general sense, simple-minded sense. So Michel Aflaq escaped to Iraq, and the branch, the national Ba'ath Party was in Iraq. The Syria faction is called the Syrian Ba'ath Party. Syrian Ba'ath Party is controlled by Al-Assad family and their cohorts and their associates, and they are deeply penetrated by the oligarchy. At the time, it was openly France and Britain. Later on, it became the banking globalization oligarchy. And later on, he joined the faction, which became dominant in Russia. They called Chabad Lubavitch, extreme globalist, Zionist, pro-Israeli. So from that day, he's a Zionist, pro-Israeli, globalist, criminal. And all these slogans are fake. Michel Aflaq was escaped to Syria, to Iraq. Saddam Hussein is from that faction. He has some Arabic pride and Arabic, maybe some traces of Islam in him. At least Islam for him is a revolution and is a great achievement to the Arab nation, at least. But there seems to be have some belief in Islam in some basic, trivial, simple-minded sense. And they adopted Michel Aflaq. He persuaded Michel Aflaq to accept Islam on his deathbed. So they announced in Iraq that Michel Aflaq embraced Islam. So we are now an Islamic party. Anyway, that is all like icing on the cake. It's not really fundamentally important. When the revolution in Iran happened, Saddam Hussein, because he's stupid and shallow-minded, instead of putting his hand in the hand of Khomeini and really make a revolution in the area, Arab nationalism plus greed for power plus stupidity and arrogance blinded him, and also the Gulf countries were stand by to give billions and millions and billions. They succeeded moving him against the revolution. And we have the long war for 8 years, which is initiated definitely by Saddam. We know that. It's his claim that the Iranian attack is a fake claim. I think the main motivation for that is that Saddam has a conflict with the Shah in the 60s, the early 70s, and the Shah was victorious and forced him to give up certain territories in Iraq. At the time he was still prime minister and only the secondary leader. In time of his uncle, his maternal uncle is Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr. He was the president. He was under him. Later al-Bakr left and gave him the power. So there's no coup d'etat. It's an internal restructuring of the party and the leadership. So to take revenge and take that land again, he thought now Iran is in upheaval. Let me snatch that land back. Utter stupidity. Doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that's what Allah blinded him. Never for what historically we don't know what Allah designed. And we should not speculate about Allah's intention. But it seems to be Allah blinded him for certain reason, which developed in the last 40, 50 years. He was engaged in 8 years in war. That war drained both Iraq and Iran. In that war, Hafez al-Assad played a very cunning role. He put his hand in the hand of Iran, claiming we are ultimately Alawi. We are protecting the graves of the Imams, which most of them are not real graves. They're just the shrines for nothing. If you dig, you'll find nothing. Because these Imams allegedly there are actually in Madina or in Morocco, not here. Anyway, well, this irrelevant. The shrines are there, protecting that. Everything is nice. And this Saddam is danger for everyone. And he mediated getting weapons from everywhere, from Israel, from Oliver North, you know, the Contra affair, all of these things. Hafez al-Assad is considerably involved in that. Also Saudi Arabia from the other side. And this way he was able to fool the Iranian revolution. That's what I believe. I don't think they gave up on revolutionary ideals. They were really idealist. They closed the Israeli embassy. Some of the young people, single-handedly, not by order of the leadership, because the leadership is knowing that there is certain international agreement which must be respected, like no touch embassies, invaded the embassy, and we have the hostage affair there, which is had a very deep scar in the American psychology until now. All of that happened, and Hafez al-Assad is the one who funneled weapons and helped Iran to get weapons and break the siege around it. In that time, he got the opportunity now to dispatch with any Islamic movement, because Islamic revival started in the 50s and the 60s by Muslim Brotherhood, and in the 70s it became very considerable, very enormous, and it was going in Syria. So that was an opportunity to do his crackdown on Hama and get away. Because if Iran was not under siege and in need of his help to get weapons and so on, they would have condemned that outright. It's not like what happened recently with Bashar. It's not. That was the real revolutionary Iran. But even some Shia at that time criticized Iran. I remember discussing with Professor Hamid Algar, I think he's still alive, about that, and he was condemning that, telling me, I understand you, it is worth condemnation to be silent about what Assad did. Individually, the Muslim Brotherhood are wrong and right. Bombing Hama in that way is absolutely rejectable. It can't be accepted. Someone who fought against the Shah because of his tyranny and oppression should have not accepted that. But they are under siege. Hamid Algar, who is an English Muslim who converted to Islam, inclined to the Shia madhab, inclined only, said, no, I don't accept this excuse. This is absolute. This should not be negotiated. So he was more radical than me at this point. Anyway, times went, Khomeini died, and then obviously I would say the revolution has been hijacked in Iran, has been hijacked by opportunist, nationalist, maybe possibly atheist, all kinds of munafiq, kafir, we don't know which mix is there. Sometimes it's very clear smelling for kufr, and sometimes it is neutral, and sometimes slightly more Islamic, like Ahmadinejad. But unfortunately, Ahmadinejad is a man who believes in myths of Mahdi and waiting at a tunnel and these things. Someone like that would not be in the real world. So even if he's more definitely committed to Islam and more Islamic, he will not be able to manage the world. You don't manage the world by checking how we can get the man out of the tunnel. That's not the way you can manage the world. So that's unfortunately Iran since then. And Hafez al-Assad was always cooperating with Iran, try to advocate for them everywhere, because this gives him a legitimacy of being pro-revolution and cover up for his crime inside Syria. Hafez al-Assad passed away late in the last century, I think in 1999 or 89 or something. In their internal conflicts, obviously his major son, Basil, the strong one, was killed most likely by his uncle, Rifat al-Assad, the brother of Hafez. And because the internal conflict, Rifat was exiled toward Rifat was more brutal than Hafez, by the way, but Hafez is more intelligent and cunning. Was exiled to Paris, where he died a few years ago. And then, when it was clear that Hafez is dying now, they re-imported Bashar. Bashar was working here in Britain as I don't know, he was a dentist or a medical doctor, I don't know, but he was working in a practice. Imported him, but the rule is really in the hand of the so-called old guard, the old Baathist, the seasoned one, and he was a front man. Slowly he became part of the guard, definitely. So I'm summarizing that so we can refer to it. And then with the fall of Saddam in Iraq and the blunder the Iranian committed by cooperating with the government installed by the Americans. By the way, I advised Ayatollah Iraqi. I discussed with him this, and this is a major blunder. He said, we want to help the Iraqi people. It's the usual argument. There's no way except to avoid the danger of America. So what you are doing is you're inviting a lion. It may be an old lion, a lion with teeth next door. One day he will consume you. Secondly, you dream that one day you will be able to get the Americans out. Slowly, bit by bit, diplomatically, you are mistaken. There will be time, maybe 10, 15 years from now. That's what I said in 2003. There will be times in which both of us, me and you and others, will be weeping blood instead of tears. What's going to happen? Don't fool yourself. In such situations, issues of life and death, you have to take the ideologically correct position. Otherwise, you will pay a heavy, heavy, heavy price. Obviously, Iraqi does not have enough influence in the government, and he is himself a good-hearted Muslim. As usually, unfortunately, most Muslims are soft and good-hearted, and things continued, and the majority of Mashayikh joined the regime in that idea, and they have good relation with Iraq, and then they choose then Iraq because they have a possibility of accessing to funnel weapons to Hezbollah. Hezbollah was established in Lebanon in the 80s and gave bay'ah to Khomeini already, and established an Islamic movement against the secular Amal movement. And they kicked Amal in the butt. Amal was bigger, but they defeated, because you cannot, even if you're a big organization, you cannot fight people who were looking for Shahada. And Amal was essentially dissolved. It exists as a skeleton. And Nabih Berri, the current parliament president, is the leader who is negotiating now in behalf, most likely not in good faith, but doesn't matter. He's an enemy anyway inside. As long as he remains separated from Islamic movement, he's an enemy of the Islamic movement. Anyway, then the catastrophe in Syria happened. And then the regime in Syria was able to drag Iran in that. Or Iran, the one who have the say at the time, thought this way they will extend Iranian influence, and they will extend Shia expansion, possibly. Maybe some of them believed firmly this is a good step toward liberating Quds. Whatever the motivation, they were fooled. And Russia came on, invited by Assad. The Russians are not fooled. The Russians came because they belong to the same camp at that time, the Chabad-Lubavitch globalization, like Putin. And Putin also still have some imperialistic and some dreams of war motors and so on in his mind, obviously, some traces, and wanted to keep the base, thinking it's good for him. But the main purpose of being in Syria is to protect Israel. And Assad knows he will not stay in power without being a protector of Israel. But that was not clear to the Iranian, because now we have leaks, like from the Mossad here in England, the Syrian Mossad, and so on, is that Iran became in 2022 aware that Hafez al-Assad, the top leadership, Hafez al-Assad, Maher al-Assad, and also the commander of the Air Force Intelligence, his name, I think, Jamil Hassan or Hassan Jamil, and others, obviously, that's the top brass, the topest of the top. They were giving their secrets and their location to the Israelis. And the Mossad leader in London, in Britain, claims that even Iran tested this by sending a column of trucks and so on, declared to be having food and wheat and things like that. So, and one of them having weapon. And they told Bashar directly, the truck with the number so on and this color so on, just a number, is the one who having weapons. The rest is just food and things like that. And lo and behold, after it entered Syria from Abu Kamal going to Homs, the column, it was attacked by the Israeli. Which one was taken out? The only truck which has weapons. So Iran knew, they made that as a test, that this could be only leaked from the top level, or nobody else, from the top level. I say, this is very good that they became aware in 2022, but what did you do about it? Although I would say also that, as the Egyptians say, صح النوم, wake up from your sleep. They are actually in cohort with Israel since the 70s. Not 2022, 50 years before. But good that you woke up late. Okay, still woke up. What did you do about it? But that's just, I'm trying to make a summary history, which we can refer to in the future. Instead of repeating it, we kind of have cut and inserted even in other places, if needed. So that's the situation with Saddam, and it's not a coup d'etat, it's not in Iraq, it's nothing like what he's saying. He's looking at history in a very shallow way and not understanding the difference between what history is based on people who chose to think to the level of the beast. Yeah, they chose by their free choice. That's not by dictated by necessity. Because human beings have a free choice and they will be accounted Yawm al-Qiyamah as single person, as parties, as organization, as states. Although the state is an abstract entity of it, so the majority of the people of the state, or the majority of the ruling elite, is that one who makes the choice. And then the whole state and the whole society will be accountable for that. And if we talk about individual person, then if we talk about party, if the majority of the party is on the wrong path, the whole party will pass, because the ones who are not on the wrong path, if it is fundamentally important to have a stand against it, like between kufr and iman, the others will say, no, we cannot stay in this party, we have to depart. Concerning Egypt, is not that Morsi did not exterminate the other ones and so on. No, it's not Morsi's mistake. Morsi was put in a situation which is untenable. The mistake is the mistake of Muslim Brotherhood Party. They negotiated with the military, thinking, but their argument was, the military, they are Egyptian. They look Egyptian. The skin color is Egyptian. The dialect is Egyptian. Everything is Egyptian. And they even come with us in the prayer. So they are Muslims. They are Egyptian Muslims. So the slogan of the Muslim Brotherhood said, these are our sons. How can we distrust and expel our sons? So then he negotiated with them and did horse trading. Instead of telling them, please, you are our sons, yeah? You are protector of the nation, yes, absolutely, but your place is in the barracks, not in the political. You don't have anything to do with politics. Politics will be done by the general public and the population. And we have to ask the people in popular votes. Even that the Muslim Brotherhood did not insist, because the leadership of Muslim Brotherhood, they think they are the inspired one, the people elect, the God-elected people. They are the successful group. They are the wise ones. Exactly like the mullahs and Ayatollah think in Iran. We are the one. We are the representative of the Imam. The general public, they are simpleton. They are like minor kids. We are their dads. We have to control them. Not recognizing that the general public is the one who has the power. The general public is the one who understands and feels the situation better than you. And you have to sound and check what they want, not what you want. That's the reason Morsi was finished. Not that he did not crack down and kill everyone. No, absolutely not. Saddam killed everyone opposing to him. Did that help him to survive? No. Yes, it took some time, but it never produced a regime which will really bring the Ummah or his people to prosper. And ultimately, he ended being hung and his neck broken. So there are plenty of fallacies and misunderstanding there, but there is a fundamental misunderstanding. I made that summary just to say what the history was really is. If looked at that time, looked in details, and looked after the time from outside, in a bird's eye view. I am following that, by the way, all that history I'm following at that time, before this historian was born. I was in the field. I was in Germany studying, and I witnessed what happened before 1967, and how the SYRIA regime at that time did certain action against Israel. And every time Israel hammer them, they scream, where is you, Abdel Nasser? You are the protector of the Muslim Ummah. Come in, until they got him in Sinai, where he got slaughtered in 1967. I was there. I was getting the communication of Hizb Tahrir, the political statement, what the newspaper are writing. So I know the details, but also after that, I'm looking from the back in history. So I see the history better than this history, as a history, neutrally. From ideological point of view, it should not have been like that, but the actors, the main actors, the ones who have power in their hand, they're people who chose to sink to the level of the beast. That's it. As if no revelation has come, as there's no day of judgment. If you chose that, your action will be accordingly, and the world will develop according to the law of the jungle. And it may develop a certain direction, and may in certain situations some people gain power and stay in power for their lives. That's well possible. But does not mean this is right, nor does it mean the way history should go, nor does it mean that's what that morally required to be done, unless you deny all morality and deny revelation and deny Islam. So we have to separate between what is the reality and which forces play for a role between those who are fighting for power. But those who are fighting for power or fighting for power either to be just dominant and exercise power and be the leader and the great man and so on, or those who are fighting for power to get more money, more wealth, more women. That's like mafia and criminals. This is Fassaad, and the first one is Ulu, aggrandization. And Allah says clearly in the Quran, تلك الدار الآخرة نجعل الذين لا يريدون في الأرض علوا ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين. The final destination in paradise is allocated for those who do not want on earth neither being dominant, just for the case of dominance, rule-based system, we dictate whatever we want, but we don't want to rape women, take money, no, just mere power, and everyone submit to us, and we issue laws which protect people against other, we do that, but we have the final say. We are the lords on earth. We want exaltation, ulu, or fasad, mafia. We want more money. We will employ prostitutes. We sell drugs. We don't care. By the way, the Bashar regime was at least in the last few years, surviving itself by drug production and selling. So it's actually not even classical ulu. It's more fasad. It's more corruption, more mafia-like entity rather than a real state entity. A state is at least want control, want what they call it, monopoly on power, to keep the public peace, to progress the country, and you feel happy that you are the leader of this progress and so on. That's ulu. But they are not even interested in that. They are interested in money and wealth, allocating more money outside and so on by selling Captagons, and possibly they were employing prostitutes also. But this is a footnote, it's not important. Captagon is more productive than prostitutes, brings more money. And other cocaine also, they have cocaine factories, they have been found. So that's it. So we have to distinguish between how history is if people chose to be animals, and it has its own dynamic, naturally, and his own instinctive drives, naturally. We can study that, like Ibn Khaldun did, or how it should be. And we have to distinguish that clearly and be clear ourselves what we want and how do we analyze, under which angle we are doing the job. Otherwise, we are fooling ourselves. We're mixing the two things because the universe is structured this way, meaning it's okay to do it because Allah created this way. No, Allah created this way and created you otherwise to test if you can ascend in the level of divinity. If you can come close to be a divine without ever possibly becoming a divine and ascend up. That's his decision in the foundation of the world. That's it. And that's the reason the really situation of the universe follow certain mechanical laws and other social laws and so on, while the other one, which you are required to do, follow certain moral laws and Sharia injunction. And the test is that you go above like this and ascend up in the divinity level. And that with the purpose to go into paradise. The other way, if you choose the other way, the revelation is clear, both in the teaching, in the Torah, in the Gospels and so on. The hellfire is waiting. Make your choice. But these are two separate things. The one who gave this command is the one who created this. Why he created it asynchronous to his command? Because he wants to test that some people ascend. That's the foundation decision of the universe. Accepted, you don't accept it, you have no other way except to accept it. You can object to it, try to exit the universe, you'll not be able to do. Kill yourself, you'll not be able to escape God. So it's futile. But the analysis must be based on that. Is that what should be? Or is that dictated by the necessity of the law of the jungle and the desire to have your seed procreate and have procreation and enjoy sex and enjoy food and so on? It sounds trivial, but this is how it boils down to that ultimately. So just a comment on that, but I expanded on the history of Syria, so we don't need to refer it back. As reality, the way he's describing the reality now is wrong, is even wrong.
I mean, it does deteriorate further as well. It's worth playing as much as possible, inshallah, because there'll be a lot of things to comment on, because it does show a certain mindset.
For my turn to come. That's how it works, unfortunately.
Will this way of politics, will it always remain like this?
Sunnatul Haya. Sunnatul Haya. Sunnatul Haya. You know, Sunnatul Haya. When you come to power,
it is the system works if you are materialistic and accept. But is that the way human created and being given commands to be according? That's the question. So the question that is life is like that. If everyone accepts to be just a continuation of the beast, that's okay. It's true. That's the way. But you have to regard it as the sunnah, which you have to comply with, is only if you accept that there is no revelation and no command to be otherwise.
It gets worse. It gets worse.
Yeah.
Watch.
In power, look at the historical record. That's all you have to do. Look at the historical record. We have instances where it doesn't work that way. So, for example, Fathu Mecca. Again, this is why studying history is a good primer for understanding Sirah and understanding Islam better. What the Prophet did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is an exception to a rule.
No.
Freeing Quraysh.
No. Just stop here.
Giving Quraysh.
That's becoming in the top at the end, not at the beginning. Let's say at the beginning. Now we see what's the beginning. Wait. When the Messenger started his message, he carried da'wah. Quraysh offered him kingdom, offered him more women. So if you want kingdom, we appoint you a king. Quraysh was a semi-democracy, like a plutocracy. Tribal chieftains meet in Dar al-Nadwa, which is like a senate, and make decision about it. There was not very much decision to be made, so they meet only rarely anyway. But every tribe does his decision, and people's life is running, almost what you call it, Arabic anarchism. Yeah, anarchy. There's no need for that. Everyone manages his own family according to some old, well-established legal principles. And if there's a dispute, they go to some kind of a Kohen or soothsayer who claims to be talking in behalf of the gods and make a judgment. That's it. Simple life, straightforward. Now this man came and abolished all these deities and so on, claimed these are all false, etc., etc. And that shook their worldview and their way of life. I'm not going to give up what we inherited from our parents and these idols and these ideas and these things for something which Muhammad claims to be the truth, and there are repercussions in dunya and akhirah. So they made him offer. Is that because you're calling for that because you want to have leadership? Because Bani Hashim started slowly to lose leadership. They were the leader in Mecca. At least the seed of Qusay have all the leadership in Mecca. But the other tribes like Bani Makhzum were competing with them. And they were almost, the competition was actually, power was distributed almost equally. So if you want to gain the power again of Qusay, who was the undisputed leader, no problem. We appoint you even a king. No problem. We accept you as a king. If you want women, we choose you for the most beautiful woman here or outside and get them for you. Wealth, we have. We can accumulate so we become the most rich and us. Obviously, Messenger rejected that. He did not come for that. He's not interested in that and cannot be interested in that. He continued to carry da'wah until oppression started and persecution. Then he wanted to have protection for the da'wah. That's what Talab al-Nusrah. That's completely different than what Hizb al-Tahrir thought. And this is, you could show the point of view of Hizb al-Tahrir about Talab al-Nusrah to establish a state is a fallacy, is wrong. And we have detailed that ad nauseum in our writing called Talab al-Nusrah wa Iqamat al-Dawla. The title fools you, but it shows inside that Talab al-Nusrah is not to establish it down. And he went to Taif and so on. And then ultimately, the Nusrah was offered to him from the people of Medina. He never thought the people of Medina, who were in a civil war, would be capable of offering Nusrah. But they, amazingly, you see how Allah does the universe. He ordered him to something and managed the universe his own way. They offered the Nusrah. Now the agreement, Al-Aqaba, which Hizb al-Tahrir referred to in a wrong way, what it says, there was a covenant and bay'ah based on it. It has two major parts. The major part is that we protect the Messenger of Allah and his companion. When in the negotiation, he said, you give me and my companion protection when we arrive in Medina only, so that I can carry the da'wah. There's no force on anybody to embrace Islam. I will not force anybody to do anything. And that was the covenant, essentially. When the Messenger of Allah comes to Medina and his companion, we protect them, fight for them in Medina, as we fight for all our underclothing, meaning underclothing is a metaphor, meaning as we fight for our honor, for our genitals, for our women and wife and kids. That's underclothing in the Arabic expression. But he took also another covenant, which is misunderstood by everyone until very recently. He said, and talk a covenant for them, or another, and that we say the truth anywhere without fearing any blame. That's clear. It's part of being supportive for the da'wah. If you are supportive of the da'wah, you should tell the truth, even if it is bitter, even if nobody accepts. You don't look for anybody's claim. That's what Ubadah ibn Samit did. And then there's an interesting point, say, وَأَنْ لَا نُنَازِعَ الْأَمْرَ أَهْلَهُ إِلَّا أَنْ يَأْمُرَكَ بِمَعْصِيَةٍ بَوَاحًا or إِلَّا أَنْ تَرَوْا كُفْرًا بَوَاحًا. And we don't dispute with those who are in charge, unless that's the better narration, unless they command you with an disobedience to Allah publicly. And this is, you have the clear evidence for that from the book, that this is the ma'asiyah. Clear evidence, not a matter of adoption or dispute. It's blatantly clear. Then you dispute with him. Otherwise, you don't dispute with one in charge. If you read that carefully, essentially, Mr. is saying, you don't dispute the one in charge now. My coming in Medina and having your protection does not give you license to jump on those in power and remove them. That's not the purpose of my coming. No. You continue under their leadership. You keep the current state structure unless you are commanded with a ma'asiyah, with the obedience to Allah, which you know with certainty from the book, from the revelation, publicly. Security is irrelevant. Publicly, as a public figure, as a leader, he commands you to do something. Like I said, kill this person. I don't like his notes. This is ma'asiyah clearly. If he commands us, no, I'm not going to accept, you withdraw that command, or I will pull the sword and fight you. That's the munaza. That's the spirit. That's the only thing. The one in charge could be a kafir, could be whatever, but he cannot command you. And between the line meaning, don't take my coming as a license to jump and try to change the leadership. I'm not coming for that. I'm not allowing to do that. That's a correct reading. And all other evidence to show that after coming in Medina, he was only the leader and the one who commands only Muhajirin. He never commanded anything with Ansar until the Saheefah was written. And even when some Ansar offered to assassinate Ka'b al-Ashraf, he asked them to check with Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, take permission from him, because he's the leader of the tribe. He's the head of the state of the tribe. If we regard the tribe as a state in some generalized sense, the correct sense of tribe, of the tribe is a state. So legally, in the legal form, the court. And that's what have been even found very recently by the Supreme Court in America, that each of the Indian tribes is having all the features of any member state of the United States of America and should have all states' rights. That's the meaning, the deep meaning of a state. So ask the permission of the head of state. You are doing an action which has to have the permission of his state, because it will may initiate war with some of his allies. That's grave. Ask his permission. Your offer is nice. I love it, but I can't give you permission. It's not in my authority, even if I'm a messenger of Allah. Anyway, I don't want to go into these details. That's what has happened. When Ka'b al-Ashraf was assassinated, the Jews were in a state of shock. Ka'b al-Ashraf deviated from the other Jews. The Jews were peaceful. The relation was perfect in interaction. Ka'b al-Ashraf is the only one, after Quraysh was defeated and mauled in Badr, went to Mecca, opened a lamentation, created poetry, encouraging Quraysh to attack Muhammad and kill him and attack the Muslims, insulting Muslim women and describing their body parts and all things which really acts of war. And because of that, the Messenger of Allah wished that someone dispatch of him, but he has no power to do it in Medina. But the Ansar offered that. They came, say Muhammad, one of our leader, because he has his own fortification, so he's like a sub-state of Bani Nadir, because we have Bani Qaynuqa, Bani Nadir, and Bani Qurayza. And he was assassinated. You know what has happened? I allowed him to be assassinated because of this and this and this and this. We were peaceful. We were not in a state of war. We were in the original peace which our human beings are born in. And this guy started war. Started allying with Quraysh and fighting with it. That cannot be tolerated. So let us write something which regulates the relation now formally. And this is the Saheefah, read our Saheefah. This way, the Islamic State, by the way, as a federal state, from day one, it's a federal state out of 7 Ansari states or tribes, and the Muhajirun number 8. That's the federal state, and that federal state is in a confederation and or alliance, military alliance with the Jewish states, which are mentioned there according to the structure and the relation to the Ansar. That's you could regard that as I don't think the Prophet is so politically cunning. It must be by revelation. He said that, and the Jews of this tribe, and the Jews, it doesn't say, mention Bani Qaynuqa, Bani Nadir, Bani Qurayza, by name. He mentioned the Jews of Bani Auf, the Jews of Bani Salama, the Jews of this, the Jews of this, because they were having certain alliances, making the alliance is a sub-tribe of the Jews. So Bani Nadir have various alliances, and based, for example, Ka'b ibn Ashraf has his own tower, his own fortification. There are other fortifications, Bani Nadir. Bani Qaynuqa had one or more fortification. Bani Qurayza, we know they are small, they have only one fortification. So they were mentioned as allies of the Ansar, not with their genuine name. But this is, someone says this is a political move par excellence, but this is not relevant. That's what is there. So they have an Islamic Federation based on choice, and people agree on him based on the reality in the field. And not all people will agree on him. If he had a vote, maybe he would get 66%, 65, 70. How do we know that? After that, in the Battle of Uhud, he went out, and the third of the army followed Abdullah ibn Ubay said, why should we go there fight? There would be no fight anyway. That's their fake argument. And this man, Muhammad, accepted the advice of common people who do not understand warfare. I am the one who advised we stay in Medina and do street warfare. And he accepted the other point of view, which the Prophet initially accepted the point of view of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, the head of the Munafiqeen. Yes, he accepted it because it's wiser and could have been militarily better even. But the majority wanted to go out. We don't want to appear as if we are cowards sitting at home. We can't go out and fight Quraysh. And they really can. So when you're going out, Abdullah ibn Ubay say, I'm going back. And the third of the army, they went out to the 1,300 something, retreated. Meaning if we have a vote, 30% will reject the messenger of Allah as head of state and say that. But the majority, overwhelming majority, two-thirds majority and more, was with him. So that's how it works. The state of Quraysh is a state of war because Quraysh was oppressive and fighting, and the permission to fight them came in the Quran. Initially, it was not permitted. The moment he crossed and was near to Medina, or after arriving in Medina, he got the ayah. Permission is granted to those who have been oppressed, etc., to fight those the oppressors. It's only permission. Before that was even prohibited. Yeah, that's how it works with the revelation. It's not imperial power. It's not King Henry saying that or that. No. That's what the king of the universe is saying. And you have to comply with it. You are created to comply, not to go according to your desire on the law of the jungle. Unless you want to be a kafir and face the hellfire, fine, go ahead. Nobody prevent you. You can apply the law of jungle. Nobody will prevent you. You can. You have the choice. You have said. And it's synchronized in the world with the powers that to be there around. There's no problem. And may be successful. It may fail. It's also the Roman Empire succeed on the same basis for thousands of years. No problem. It's not a problem. The problem is that what is you required to be as a human being. So then order came to fight all those transgress, and it stopped there. And they want to accept Quraysh and its allies. And most Arab tribes were allied Quraysh. But some Arab tribes were not allied, and the Prophet never fought against them. That's established historically. We have a writing on that, which will be soon, inshallah, completed. So when he defeated Quraysh and entered Mecca, he came as a lord who conquered a country. The state established in Medina and everything is gone. That's not a coup d'etat. This is victory in a battle. An enemy is completely defeated and surrenders. Unconditionally surrender. It's unconditional. The surrender was unconditional, taken by force. But the Messenger of Allah generously, to end this hostility and cut the issues of revenge and so on, all these things to dispatch of them, told Quraysh, what do you think I'm going to do with them? Say, you are a noble brother and the son of a noble brother. You are one of us originally. We were wrong, but it's in your hand. Say, اذهبوا فأنتم الطلقاء. Go, I release you. Because they were actually prisoners of war. طلقاء, I release you from imprisonment. He could have, and according to the old law, he could have struck their neck. Except those who take refuge in certain places like the house of Sufyan and this house, which he gave certain guarantees. But anyone who did not take refuge in these designated places and should be killed, but they surrender. And few others were ordered to be killed even if they had hung on the Kaaba, because they committed specific crimes in time past. That's clear. It's nothing with a coup d'etat or revolution. It's a surrender. It's a surrender document. It's like Japan surrendering of the 2 atomic bombs, or Germany signing, General Dönitz, I think signed the surrender, unconditional surrender statement. That's it. Has nothing to do with establishing a state or a coup d'etat or no coup d'etat. If you have such a twisted vision of the reality, you are a real problem. I don't know how can anyone talk about history and political analysis and how interaction between states and how interaction between people inside the state and the faction inside the state changing the state. Compare that with invading another entity and whatever the reason for the invasion. Is it imperialism? It is taking revenge of previous grievances like Quraysh. It is this. Like, for example, the case of Israel. This entity is not legitimate. They should not be in Palestine. So we address them, go out, take ships and planes and leave, for God's sake. They don't leave, we'll remove you by force. If it is necessary. That's it. Simple. You just live here.
I mean, let's continue.
That's not changing a state or a coup d'etat.
I mean, this is where he goes. That is, that's a moral standard. And later on, you'll know where it's going, because it's much worse than.
That's not a moral standard. That's not a moral standard. What the Prophet did in Mecca is because he's a generous and he's sent as a mercy for mankind. He could have struck their necks legitimately without any problem and would be still in the moral high ground. But this way, he's not only having the justice and moral high ground, he's going into the perfection and charitable higher level.
Well, the thing is, what you'll find is that the thread of this is that it's a standard that is almost untenable, and if people fall by the wayside, it's fine. Let's listen to it, because
this is for various reasons is a fallacy. First of all, the initial claim is false. You are based on a description of the reality which is false. That's number one.
There's so much wrong with this.
Any conclusion is false. Secondly, if it is a standard which is obligatory, people are not allowed to fall in the way. If they fall, they are blameworthy, and they definitely will pay price in their judgment, but they may pay even price in dunya. So it is not the way really the key to success. You see, even in dunya. So there's various fallacies there.
There's loads of fallacies, but it gets so much worse. It gets so much worse, because brace yourself.
Giving them even reward and incentive. That is not how nations, how conquerors, he didn't conquer. No, Islamically, we don't want to use the word conquering, but it was a fact, an opening, let's say.
He
That's
said
not how to do it.
It is a conquest. It's a state taking over another state and having an unconditional surrender agreement. At the time, they did not write it down, but so it's clear. It's unconditional surrender.
Bilqis, in the Quran, she says, when the Muluk enter a land, what do? Two things. First of all, they take those in power, they eliminate that class. You have to eliminate competition immediately. She says you have to kill off the top brass. You have to do it.
Let me comment on that quickly. That's what it says in the Quran. That's not what the Quran says. The Quran said the queen of Saba, responding to her people, she's a queen. She was a queen, obviously. If kings enter in a country, if they enter in a country, then the usual habit of kings, which is true historically, we know that from history, they will remove the dominant one of them, subdue it, and the lower folk will be advanced. They will use them as agents. So if they don't have enough capability to govern directly, and usually have another language, so you need people from the land to work in your behalf, do the administration, collect taxes. That's natural. And from that, you are not going to take it from the dominant ones, because they could foment a rebellion and work in your back, because they have connection, they have roots in the society. So you remove them. That's what the king doing. So she thought Suleiman is a king like that, he will do that. But in reality, history shows that he did not do that. And still Yemen, after that, Judaism, at the time it was still not contaminated, not extremely contaminated, beginning with maybe barely any contamination, started spreading in Yemen. And slowly in Yemen and across the sea in Abyssinia and Ethiopia, a Jewish community grows step by step, slowly, peacefully, over more than a millennium. And Suleiman was not in the business of going there, raising taxes and killing people. It turns out that her judgment, and she said, based on that, there's a danger of confronting such a king, and they hear news about that he's strong and so on. The best thing is to appease him with a gift and try to keep him at bay. She is managing according to the usual behavior of kings. That shows she's a wise woman. She knows how the world works, but she's not a believer. She's a sun worshipper according to the Quran. So you cannot take from anything related to belief. But she is wise and knows what's going on in the world, yes. And she's worthy of praise for that, yes. And later on, her conversion with Sulaiman, surrender to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, showed that she's wise and know how the world works. And obviously, all history indicates, we don't know what the Quran does not say what happened after that. Maybe Sulaiman married her, maybe not. Maybe she went back to Abyssinian. There are some claims that she gave birth to certain children which have the seed of Sulaiman all the way to the allegedly Hira Selassie came to be from that seed. Allah Alam of that. But anyway, there was nothing what she expected from kings because he is a man committed to revelation. And the effect in Yemen and in Ethiopia is stunning through history. We don't find any trace of the Romans, for example, who occupied, let's say, North Africa and for almost a millennium. No trace in culture, in religion, nothing. It's evaporated because it was taken by the sword to get money, to get what? And they got it, yeah, they got it. But after that, disappeared. But if you look at historic long frame, local frame, the behavior of king does not really make really history goes in the right direction. It may go along historic channels which dictated by physical law, by the law of the jungle. Yeah, maybe that's how the universe is structured. The universe is structured that things work like this. But humans are structured and blown the spirit on them that they should work like this. But they can choose to sink down to work like the animals. That's fine. No problem. But make your choice. There's no inevitability there.
What's irritating is that there seems to be an underlying justification. So I'll keep playing. You're going to find lots more to comment on.
When the king enters, you have to kill top brass. And then you have to change the social fabric.
No, you don't have to kill top brass. Why do you have to kill? People and kings were doing that because that will cement their power because they chose to be going along the law of the jungle. Sulaiman did not do that because he's a prophet. Or at least close to prophethood. He's a prophet according to the Quran, definitely. But the Jews claim that he was a magician and a kafir. And the Christian believe that he was a prophet and a wise man. So take your pick. But anyway, we know from the Quran, if the Quran is a revelation also, go back to the point one. That he did not do that. The Quran does not comment what had happened that, but obviously Saba and the queen of Saba, they lived nicely, up and down like any human beings and so on. And there was no oppression. Nobody was forced to, because even until the time of Islam, there were still tribes, not maybe in genuine the high mountain, Yemen and Adan and Hadramaut itself, but bordering it, there were still pagans there. Nobody oppressed them. You can adopt your belief or stay pagan as Jewish. You can join us as a Jew. And the people joined bit by bit until the time of Islam. And then Islam became dominant. And the people still Jews until today. But most of them joined Islam bit by bit. There's no need to cut anybody's head. Because the initial Islamic rulers, the Khalifa al-Rashid, the Messenger of Allah, were not about to cut head or enforce power. They're about to let life develop according and give everyone the opportunity to act according to the command of Allah. And he has the choice. This is the practice that see it for your own eyes.
Let's carry on playing. There's lots more to object to.
And in this case, it's Fassaad. They spread Fassaad, division, sedition, so that no one faction or two factions are strong enough to attack you. You divide and conquer. Sunnatul Haya. It's just the way it is. So we don't judge these things based on our moral integrity and our moral standards as individuals.
Evaluating history, yes, but is it right or not? That's the question. We are, if he obviously the channel called Historyun, historians, okay? So he wants to be a historian, study history. That's fine. But this should not be taken as a justification, non-justification, or a moral qualification what's happening to Syria. If he's justifying that by that, that's again, that's essentially justifying committing zina by that we have sexual desire. We cannot do anything about that. Yes, you have sexual desire, and it's designed by by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through evolution or by sudden creation, whatever it is, the mechanism to be for the continuation of the species, and also to have a sufficient attraction to continue the species, especially for women who have to go the burden of childbirth and so on, that at least some compensation with beautiful sex is there. That's the design of the universe. Does not mean that you're allowed to go to sex out of the wedlock because you want a pleasure. I don't understand how these people argue. So what he's arguing for.
Yeah, look, it's not so much about Syria. We need to put part of Syria to the side. It's more about general power politics. The whole thing is about power politics. This
power politics may be working this way, and that's the way it works because it's the law of the jungle. Agreed, no problem.
And it's the same way. It's the same way.
But does this mean it's okay to be like that? That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
He's making the connection subconsciously so that the listener thinks, that's okay. Because
that's where it's coming. That's
why the universe functions, and that's the way it works.
It's tough. It's like it just happens. It's going to happen. It's almost like it's inevitable.
Then the whole revelation doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Let's carry on because there's some very specifics he gets to as well. He mentions about Yazid. He mentions about rules not applying to leadership. So this is going to an area where it's going to make you a bit livid. Let's just carry on, inshallah, yeah?
Different ball game altogether. And if you think someone's going to be able to manage an entire nation full of different pockets and factions based purely on goodwill, you haven't been keeping up with the program. Go back to the last episode in Egypt, Morsi, and study his rise and his meteoric decline. Because he wasn't willing to go that far.
Morsi. His description is wrong. It's not Morsi the wrong one. The wrong one is his party put him in a situation that after negotiation with the military, who should have told, you are our sons, you are our brothers, but you have overfunctioned. Your function is in the barak and protecting the nation, and not interfere in politics strictly. No. You make a coup d'etat in time past, rightly or wrongly, it happened. It passed. We have oppressive regime under Abdel Nasser. That passed. We are not going to open the books. Sadat came, played games. He was an openly American agent. It passed. Mubarak came, is a donkey, but he's clearly pro-Israel and so on, and did not develop the country as it should be. That's passed. We're not going to open these books. If there's special grievance, someone can sue at court. We don't want to go in revenge. We want to clean the past. But now, all of these regimes are based on you as an army and using power against the people, not where it belongs. So please go into the barracks and let the parties, let us, let Hizb al-Amal al-Islami, let these in. But the leadership of Muslim Brotherhood noticed that the revolution really was led and carried forward, and the demonstration and so on was prepared for years by the so-called group of 6th of April and the Islamic Labour Party led by Majdi Hussein. They are the one who did the demonstration. They are the one who got imprisoned. They are the one who called for a general strike. And Muslim Brotherhood failed to cooperate in any of that. Now, when the people start moving and the leadership of those, they jumped on the field trying to take the leadership. They are opportunists. They are violating Islamic principles, but also power principles. You did not lead at the beginning. I did not give any model. Now you want to lead. So that's the reason they negotiated the military. They wanted to have the power. The military supported them. And put the poor Morsi in the front of the gun. That's it. That's the correct analysis, not this BS he say.
Yeah, one thing that really irritates me is this. The Kuffar, I'm in the UK. When's the last time we had a coup? Long time ago. Way before living memory.
That's Maxwell. Cromwell.
Yeah. So the point is, we're living in a society where Kuffar, the ones who believe in the law of the jungle.
It's even wrong to say Cromwell is a coup d'etat. What happened is that the king, I think it's Charles the First. Is it Charles? Yeah, Charles the First. Seemed to have been inclined toward Catholicism. But the majority of the people have inherited the church of Henry VIII. Right or wrong? We are not discussing that. But at that time, Catholicism was regarded as an enemy of the state and enemy of the religion chosen by the people. How the people chose it by oppression, we don't know. But somehow they were taken by Henry before the VIII on board, and it succeeded clearly, except in Scotland. clearly, and of Ireland is completely separate, still not occupied. So there was objection back and forth, and he claimed he has divine rights, unlimited ones, and he can enforce religious aspects and so on. It was a religious war, actually. But he was going against the belief of the general public, or at least the majority in the parliament. And there was back and forth. And ultimately, he sent the parliament for, I think, 10 years or something like that in a holiday or something. Then he calls him again, and then they were not agreeing with him again. So he wanted to send them back, and they regarded that as that he is doing a coup d'etat. The king is usurping the power and confiscating the power of the people and or the nobles and the parliament. So he's the one trying to coup d'etat, and the movement against him was like that. And they removed him, decapitated him.
So the point is this: if Kufar can do it, now this subconscious mentality that no, it has to be this way. When we have contemporary examples, it's almost like saying Islam somehow our culture, our belief system is deficient because we're going to have this predicament.
Go another better model than this one. This is because of religious conflict and so on, and the king trying to enforce his belief on the people, relying on the old system that the king belief of the king is obligatory to the people under him. That's what the Roman believed. That's what the Hercules believed, and tried to stop Islam. Because they offer them clearly, if you don't embrace Islam, no problem, but leave me address the people. But that's outrageous. It's not acceptable at that time. And it led to the empire almost collapsing. The Persian Empire collapsed for other reasons, so not completely. It was destroyed also. Islam is not going to accept that. But leave that. Let's go to another situation. There's an oppressive king called George III, was the owner of North America. So these 13 areas or something like that, that they were like, I don't know, they were feudal areas or they were entities, whatever they were. I don't remember exactly what they were, the 3 areas there. And there was dispute about taxes. But in England itself, no taxes was levied at the time. The parliament was sufficiently strong that taxes had to be passed by the parliament in England. But he was taxing at will regarding these colonies as his ownership. Like this bloody king of Belgium who regarded Congo as ownership and killed 10 million of the poor pygmies, yeah? Similar. What's his look? This is my own property. I can tax the way we wish. And they said, no, we're sorry. We are not your property. We demand to be treated like the common English people. No taxation without representation. And the man became stubborn, most like he was mentally deranged at the time. There was a movie called The Madness of King George III. It's quite funny anyway. So it came to a rebellion and to a revolution and the fight with the British. The king sent his fleet. Who came to save the revolution from outside by divine, obviously, action? The revolution did not ask France. They've never thought France would help. The French fleet came and stopped the British fleet. Said, if you come one step tomorrow, it will be war between you and you. And she was as good and strong as the British fleet. And they neutralized the British fleet. The moment the British fleet is neutralized, the army in the field outside cannot succeed. That's what they did. So France has really, France as a country, obviously the French king did not do that because he's revolutionary or he loves revolution or he believes no taxation, no representation, just to give one below the girdle to Britain. How it works this way, that's the way Allah has worked mysteriously to the universe. Allah is the sovereign, he does whatever he wants. You can't ask him to comply with any principle. He has his own principle and he is doing it persistently. Don't interfere in Allah's works. What you are obliged to do. The revolutionary, but we're happy that this happened. Did they ask for it? Send a missionary? I don't think so. If someone comes to that, I don't think they even came in their mind to ask France to do anything. They may regard the French as their enemy because the French are dominantly Catholic and they were persecuting Protestant. And America is completely Protestant at that time, or almost completely. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, WASPs, essential, the overwhelming majority. Maybe a few Catholics here and there, but I don't think so to any significant number, and a couple of Jews, nothing again significant. So France came with who pushed them there? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his own mysterious way of the universe, so that this revolution survived. After that, the people met. After success, the leader was Washington. He was a general. The people there in the leadership was people of understanding and thought, and they studied philosophy, they studied history, and they decided we have various religions here, we have various conflicts. We should establish a state. The union, we establish a secular state. The Congress cannot declare any religion to be an official religion of the state. It is semi-religious, there's democracy there, because in the preamble it says it is one nation under God. So God is the supreme king. But it's far away. It's just a moral principle. And the constitution is clear. And they worked through the constitution and they worked with it reasonably well until today. There were hiccups. There were an attempt to split because of the issue of slavery in the time of Abraham Lincoln, back and forth. There will be things like that. There was a time, for example, Jackson, I think Jackson was denied, although he got the majority of the votes, but and the Electoral College went against the votes. At that time, the Electoral College was more freer than now, went against the vote, with the result that Andrew Jackson condemned them and then insisted they are traitors and so on. And then he came, but what he did, he waited until the next election and he won the election. And then he was in conflict with the parliament and they impeached him. And they escaped the impeachment with one voice. That's all happened smoothly. Nobody cut anybody's neck.
Yeah, so that's the point. I mean, that's the point.
Manageable. It's manageable.
This is the point. This is the point that irritates me. That people who have the view of law of the jungle have managed to work and not have this overt type of machinations. Yet us who have the haqq have suddenly devolved into this is the only way. And we've got the model of our prophet and
no, it's not only, that's a fallacy. This is what
I'm saying. This is the thread that this has been. Let me carry on playing. Carry on playing, inshallah, because then you can see.
That's the only way. This is what the devil tell you. It's the only way. Yeah. Exactly like when Allah ordered Adam and his wife Eve. They claim her name is Eve. Allah Adam, what's the name? Said you can't go in paradise room as much as you like. You don't need even to worry that you are naked. You don't recognize that you are naked. Just eat everything. There's only a small exception. This one tree, most likely the specific tree, that big tree there. Don't touch anything from it. That will, you'll be unjust and traitor. This is my command. That's the only restriction I have on you. He may not have explained what the tree means or not, and he's not obligated to do that. And then he warned them. When I created you, Adam, especially Adam, the devil refused to make prostration to you and honor you. Beware, this guy, maybe he was imaged in picture in front of them or whatever, we don't know how it is for him. This guy is your enemy. And he is adamant to get you out of this lavish life. Then you will be started suffering. So beware. Despite all these two injunctions, that's the only two injunctions there. There was no other injunction. Do whatever you want. Go around, do whatever you want. That's all it's there. And then what the devil say, yeah, indeed, but your Lord did not command. Your Lord is wise. He has certain purposes to fulfill. Why did you prohibit from this tree? I tell you what he's hiding from you. He want to prevent you from becoming like angels. This is a fallacy because they are superior to the angels at that time anyway. Otherwise, the angel would not be ordered to supersede them or become eternal. They know that they're not eternal. They will die. How they know? Quran does not tell us, but most likely by seeing the creature around them dying and bleeding and so on. And they know that I have the same physical body, like monkeys, like a lion, so I will die also. But if you eat, you got eternity. And then he misled them. And they forgot that Allah, he's your enemy. He doesn't do well for you. And they make that catastrophic choice. Simple. By representing things as if it is true, which is not. What should Adam said? Whatever Allah intended for prohibiting us is irrelevant. He gave us a command and we obeyed. You disobeyed the command, thinking Allah gave the command that you prostrate for me, for example, if he would have. But obviously, Adam was not to that rational level like we today. Maybe he could not structure the argument yet. He commanded you to make prostration, and you thought that command is that prostrating to Adam is honoring Adam and he is superior to you. Not necessarily. Maybe he's inferior, but Allah is ordering you to respect him and show respect by prostration. In any case, the command is from Allah, and Allah is the ultimate high. So you have to respect his command anyway. Simple. Straightforward. Not very much. But Adam was deceived by desire for eternity. He went from the gap, which here the people have desire for power. They think having power is something good in itself. It is not It is the death trap of the devil. You have power just to apply the law, or you want to have power in certain situation because you want to change life to the better, to let the divine law be applicable. Otherwise, the power is a catastrophe, is a disease. That's how the devil comes to you, to this historian, anybody else. Most human beings, they think going for a run of wanting to run for office and so on is good because you have power to put your ideas in reality. Most likely, in most people, it is just to have power for the sake of power. You fulfill your superiority minority complex by being feeling that you are supreme to the others. That's it. It's a satanic trap. Only few really will look for power because they have an agenda, good agenda. They think they serve the people with it. That's very rare. It's a satanic trap.
Sheikh, I want to get to as much of this as possible because there is so much to comment on. And just because I want you to see.
No, I think if we did, then we don't need to comment on the other things.
No, Sheikh, we need. Yeah. Sheikh, if you trust my judgment, we will play it because there's plenty more to comment on. Because he also goes to stuff. There's even what he said. I can bring you the evidences and stuff like that. As long as because it gets much worse. I want this to be so that there's no doubt. So that anyone who goes through this chat, they'll say, because the reason I'm fixated on this is because I haven't seen many videos which go into such unequivocal points. There's always things which are subliminal. People have subliminal messages. For example, I had a conversation with someone, and he said that most people are just idiots. You have to oppose them. You have to do what Banawaya said. This mentality has gone in there, but it's not expressed.
Mentality. That's a satanic mentality.
But I want to fixate on this as a receptacle for a wider objective. So I'm going to just hammer through it.
No, it's the devil just following you. Let's say, for example, how it could using your human weakness that most human, if you argue with them, they may not accept your argument, and you feel hurt personally. The Messenger of Allah felt hurt not because personally he felt refused. He felt that the truth is so evident and obvious. How can they reject the truth which will help them? He's fighting to save them for hellfire, but Allah protected them from falling in this trap. Look at the example in Uhud. In Uhud, it was clear because he accepted the Muslim point of view instead of doing a street fight so that everyone can fight. Women could pour boiling oil on the Quraysh and give them a catastrophic defeat in the streets of Madina. The young people say, this will be dishonorable for us, the people here, that we hid in houses and we fought on the streets. That according to a proud Arabic conception. We can go out and defeat them. And that's true. They can go out and defeat them. And because they are majority, Messenger accepted the majority point of view. And Abdullah ibn Ubay, the Munafiq, took that as an opportunity to show his nifaq. He didn't want to fight. He's afraid. He's a coward. And he's a Munafiq. So he treated with some of the army, about a third. Yeah. After the defeat has happened, people said, see, that acceptance was wrong. And maybe such an idea may have come in the mind of Messenger of Allah. He did not express it yet. And so on. Like his mind is not protected from that. Allah revealed to him, pacify him, saying, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. Because of mercy of Allah, you became soft with them. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا. If you would have been fadh, very, very, very harsh in talk and hard-hearted, they would have run away from you. Even if you are a messenger, to get the people to you and have a cohesive, peaceful society, you have to be soft with the people again. Fa'fu anhum, forgive them for that what they did. What they did is that they disobeyed and caused the catastrophe on the mountain and the killing of Abdullah ibn Jubayr and the turning of the battle against Muslims. Before that, they were succeeding. They were messing with the Quraysh completely. Fa'fu anhum. And then he said after, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Continue consultation with the affairs. That this decision was wrong does not negate the principle of consultation. Otherwise, the society will disintegrate. Everyone will have his own opinion and think, because I am a prophet, I can't enforce it. No. That's what comes from above seven heaven. If we agree that the Quran is from Allah, that must be clear. That's it.
The thing is, what they do is
But the devil is getting exactly like it did Adam. Because most people are...
Mawardi says this. Oh, Banu... That's what I'm saying.
Let me give you something about Abu Qatada. I once have a discussion with him. I say in Afghanistan and so on, he was sitting at Peshawar, not even fighting, like an armchair professor. And he said, okay, most Afghani are not sophisticated with fiqh, and so they have Hanafi fiqh and they're muqallid and so on. For a modern state, we need more ijtihad. Say, no problem. We use them, they are good fighters. We use them like cows, and later on we'll guide them the right way. That's al-Qatar. That's how some jihadi think. This is a satanic trap. This is a satanic trap. And that's the reason he and the like failed. Later on, Bin Laden recognized that and gave bay'at Mullah Umar and obey his commands. Although he and the Wari are vastly superior in knowledge, understanding the world and world politics vastly to Mullah, the simple-minded, good-hearted man, Mullah Umar. But they accepted him leadership and gave him bay'ah and obeyed him. And accepted the Afghani and worked with them and accepted their leadership later and fought with them until the Wari thought it's peaceful now, he can't go out, and was assassinated by this murderous, most likely Pakistani intelligence or Tajiki, whatever. Americans using these for the purpose. That's the reason these succeeded. And the reason for the success is not necessarily that they understood these fine points, but because they were sincere. Their cause was to defeat the enemies of Allah and help the Muslim Ummah and defeat the Israeli aggression in the long run and so on. That's their motivation, genuine motivation. Not having power and flexing the muscle on the common cows. Yeah?
Yeah. I'm going to carry on playing. Trust me, I'm going to carry on playing. There's plenty more to get through, yeah?